Hey guys, this is Ryan from El Topo Loco, giving you guys another deck profile. So I'm pretty happy about the new ban list. Foo Shrouded getting hit is a huge win. Um, Unless you played blue or yellow, there were very few answers for other decks, and I mostly play red. So the only really answers we had were maybe the Yamcha counterplay, which can make Foo a little bit weaker and maybe clear a piece of their board. And the other thing was the Vegito Unison can maybe delay a turn or two, but they weren't really good answers or really true answers to Foo. Um, Red decks really got shut down a lot. Like Launch couldn't really play anymore, and Bulma just instantly died. Even my Cooler Mill deck, I had to make like a tricolor just so I had Deadly Poison to answer Foo. But if you had a blue player that was playing like the Baby Unison, they could just counter that Deadly Poison with a free ape. So again, it wasn't like the best answer. But now that red doesn't have to worry about Foo, we could have decks like Bulma come back again. So I'm going to show you guys a quick profile with some Bulma control. This did really well at my locals recently, and also I did a small online tournament and won that with this deck. I do want to give a shout out to, I believe it was Travis from Gamers, which inspired me to build this deck a while ago. I've made my own tweaks since then, and I kind of put it to the side because every time I played it, Foo Shrouded came out and it wasn't playable anymore. But now we'll see how it runs, and it's actually pretty fun to control their game state and just eventually just win on one turn. You're essentially putting them on a clock the whole time. So let's look into the deck profile.
All right, so let's start with the leader. Bulma's pretty generic with what she does. Basically, she is going to make most of your deck very, very defensive. All your red and yellow Saiyans and Earthlings will gain blocker, and she also has an activate main, which you can draw once per turn. So the nice thing is that you could actually draw on if you go first because you don't have to swing for this. And you can also use your leader where you kind of have to play awkwardly other times when you know you're going to get floodgated because you always have to swing with your leader. Well, you could actually swing with something else and get additional benefits from that swing and then still draw with your leader. She does have an awaken at 4. And when you awaken, you untap 2. The one downside is that she's a little bit weaker with 5k on the front and 10k on the back. Now, she has the same permanent on the back, but this time she will draw 2 whenever you use her effect. So ideally, when you do awaken, you want to try to awaken on your own turn unless you're really desperate for energy on defense. Hopefully that's not the case because you'll have a lot of blockers, but you'll draw 1, play something that will cost 2 energy, awaken, untap those 2, and then draw another, so you're drawing 3 on your awaken turn. So she will go through her deck, and you will see that this is actually a 60-card deck, and she will filter out or draw through the deck, and you'll see all the pieces that you'll need. This is a very toolboxy kind of deck. All right, so our first turn 1 play that we really want to try to start off with is Baba. So we're going to run 4 of her. So Baba is a 1 cost, and when you play her, you get to search your deck for any bandages, and there's a few others you can search for, but we're only running 2 of these guys. So, Baba will search your deck for bandages, put it into your drop, and then you get to play bandages from your drop. Now, bandages already has blocker, and he does have an auto, but the auto is not going to do anything in this deck because we don't run any of the other pieces because they all come in rest mode. These ones will come in active mode, so you will get some blockers out of this. So essentially turn 1, you start off with 2 blockers, and we only really need 2 bandages because you're going to search them out and you can keep recycling them. And this is like a very, very good defensive tool because we'll see a lot of combos in which we can recycle these from the drop, and out of nowhere, we'll get 2 additional blockers on those turns that we really, really need defense. Bandages, you only need at 2 because unless both of them are on life, then you're in trouble. But if you happen to draw him, you just combo or discard him with another effect, and then you're going to get the use out of him. Our next turn 1 play could also be probably arguably the best blocker in this deck. We're playing this Mai. Now, this is the silver bullet for blue. She will draw you a card, so it's a 1-drop cantrip. Against blue especially, this will really hurt with the auto effect, but most of the time that is going to be irrelevant against any other color. But basically, if they activate a counter skill that will untap their energy which is mostly like Dimension Magic or Whis Coercion, they will have to kill off an energy, and I think you might get to choose the card. And then they also crit a life, and these do stack. So if you have multiple of them, they will crit and kill multiple energy. Um, Essentially, the player is just not going to untap with the Dimension Magic. Very rarely are they actually going to lose the energy and crit the life. But the reason why we were running 4 of her is not only is she a good 1-drop blocker, she has barrier. So she is very, very clutch, because if they run a lot of removal, it's very, very hard to remove this guy. And because of that, if they do want to remove it, typically barrier removal is very costly. So if they spent 2 or 3 energy trying to kill this, it doesn't feel that bad because you only invested 1 energy in it. Our next 1-drop we are running is Broly Crown. Sometimes you will side this out because you'll find that you're playing a deck that is going to use most of their energy every single turn, or maybe just leave 1 open. So sometimes this will be sided out if you don't think you're going to use it. But just showing this game 1 gives them the threat of, hey, I need to use more energy, or I could get punished. So if he gets played and they have 2 energy open, you get a look at their hand and then rip something that's 20k or less. So you could rip out a floodgate, you could rip out a super combo, but most of the time you could just use it to kind of see what their game plan is, especially if you want to find out if they have any board wipes. Because if they do a wide board wipe, it could be very detrimental to this deck. So you don't want to go overly wide with your blockers, because you could get punished for that. You want to have enough where you know you could defensively survive, but at the same time not overextend and then just feel bad. All right, and the last 1-drop that we'll play on turn 1 is our Goten. Not many people know what he does, but essentially when you play him, you get to look at the top 5 cards, and you get to choose any red Saiyan card and put it to your hand, and that Saiyan card has to be a 3 cost or less. So there's only a handful of targets that's going to hit, because we do run a lot of Earthlings. You just saw Broly Crown, that's a target. You could also pick up this Goten, and you could pick up your super combo, which we'll see in a little bit. The other beneficial part about this Goten is that it will search out your Unison, and the Unison is the key piece to this deck. It is the thing that's going to put a clock on the game and essentially burn them. I've burned them from 6 to 0 in one single turn, and you could burn them on less than that if you put enough pressure on them on the kill turn. So the Unison that really makes this deck work is this Piccolo Unison. Now, it's not the Piccolo Unison you probably expected, because it's not the junior version. It is the big old Piccolo, the old guy. So he is a 19k crit. And what he will do is, most of the time you'll play him at either 3 or 4. And you could always play him at more, just to make sure you have more markers and make sure he goes off. But we have other things that could help us out. If you play him at 3, it's pretty easy to keep him at 3, and then you could always, on the turn that you want to burn them, you can always stack him with another Unison. Or there will be other cards that could help us gain markers on this. But essentially, when you do play him, you want to make sure you have enough blockers established where he won't die right away, unless you're just using him as a beat stick and maybe using him as a piece to alleviate pressure onto your leader, because a lot of people will start swinging into him rather than your leader or your board. So sometimes it is nice to play him just for that. But typically, when you do play him, you're going to swing at the leader, and you're going to just rip cards out of their hand or let them crit life. And he does have dual attack. He could also be a nice Unison beater. If they're a 20k Unison, of course, you got to invest a card, but most Unisons will be 15, so he gets 2 markers off their Unison in that case. And because he's 19k, most people will have to combo up and waste cards just to make sure that they remove these markers. Now, the big move is, we're never going to use the -2, but it's the -4 that does the win con. You will pay 4 red and then an X amount of energy, and this will do damage equal to the X amount of energy. So essentially, if I tap 6 energy, 4 of them being at least red, X will be 2, so then it will burn 2 damage. So we're playing the long game, and which is why Fu really killed this deck, because when he got to the long run game, Fu put this in a chokehold, because you couldn't block, you couldn't use any of your negates, and then you just lost. But now we can get to the long game without that fear, and then we'll just burn them to death. And going with our unison, we have our Yamchas. And Yamcha, we are going to run at 2. I do side a 3rd, but you will find that you will not use this Yamcha too much because you're not going to play the unison on turn 3 or 4 very often. Most of the time, you're probably playing him on turn 5 plus, because you want to make sure you have your floodgates active, you have enough blockers, and if you run too many Yamchas, you're going to find they're dead cards. So he'll hit 2 cards, especially if you use him on a window 2. He's really beneficial in that case. And just like all the other cards we've seen so far, he will gain the blocker tag. So he'll be at least a beefier blocker than the other guys we've seen. So, and he could also add pressure onto a unison or onto the leader. Going back to some of our negates, we have Videl. Videl is kind of 2 for 1. You are going to get a negate, and then she is a blocker, so you're going to basically block with her almost immediately. So for 1 energy, you are stopping 2 attacks. Next, we have a Self-Awakener, because I used to run this with no Self-Awakening, and then you're really at the you're really waiting for your opponent to allow you to awaken, and that can be very hurtful if they are playing control themselves, because they could just wait till they build a board state or wipe your board and then just bring you from 5 to 0. Or if they want to do the typical double strike, bringing you, or even a triple strike, bringing you from 5 to 2 or 5 to 3, that can be very painful. So Kaba is our answer to Self-Awakening. Just 15k double strike. We run him over the trunks just because he could also take some markers off of unison. And at the very least, he can be combo power, charge, or even just a 1k block or a 1 cost blocker. Our turn 2 play, a lot of times can be this Yamcha. This will allow us to go through our decks very quickly and very easily. At the end of the turn, he will draw you an additional card. So the longer he's on the board, the more cards you will see. He is a blocker, of course. And then he does have an added benefit of an activate battle, where if you pay 2 red, you could give him 15k double strike. So a possible finisher. You'll find that your opponent will very often try to target this card and try to kill it as quickly as possible, because you're gaining so much advantage the longer that it's out. Our super combo of choice are going to be these Nappas. Now, Nappa is really great in here because obviously you get either 2 combos off of it, but ideally in this deck, it's giving you a combo piece, then he gets played, and then he's a blocker. So in those turns that they board wipe you, or they just kill all of your blockers and you really need an additional blocker, when they swing at your blocker, you might block, combo this, maybe save your blocker, maybe not, and then you get another blocker. So if they were, I don't know, trying to go in with a triple strike and they swung with everything but the triple strike, thinking that, okay, the board's going to be cleared now, all of a sudden you have another blocker to stop that triple strike from coming in. Now, going along with this, we are going to run only 1 arrival piece, and that's going to be this Gogeta. Gogeta is going to be helping us remove some pressure by when it gets played, you get to remove anything 4 or less. So sometimes if they overcommit on a combo piece or a battle card with a lot of combo power on it, you could just pop it right away and let them waste all that combo power. So he'll pop something. He will also give you a 20k blocker, and he also has double strike, so you could add pressure to leader or a unison. Now, we are playing control, so we are going to run this Vegeta to help us either stop their floodgates or possibly just stop a play that might be detrimental to us. Now, when you have 3 or more energy, he does become a 1 cost. Again, he's also a blocker. And anytime they play a card that's 15k or less, you get to take it and put it right into the drop, so they don't get their on-play autos or anything like that. Now, we do need to run board wipes, because if they keep swinging at us and swinging at us and swinging at us, we're going to lose our blockers pretty quickly. So the first one that we are running as a board sweep is this Vegeta. When he gets played, he'll subtract 20k to everything on the board. And then if you play it on your opponent's turn, you also get a 5k boost. So it can make your leader a little bit easier to combo out of. Now, he does have an auto that does the minus 20k, so he can hit cards with deflect, which is nice, but he won't be hitting cards with barrier. He does get recost to a 3 cost on either turn. So you can play him on your turn if you feel like it's more beneficial. And then, of course, he becomes a 19k blocker. So you could actually block with him a lot of times, and they're probably not going to combo over unless they really just want to get rid of him. So you either have them waste a card or you have a blocker for the next turn. Um, the only downside to this that is he is very costly, but most of your energy you're using defensively anyway. So the the worst time to really play him is when you know that they have a Trunks counterplay in hand, because they'll bounce that right back to hand. He won't get his board wipe effect, and you wasted 3 energy for nothing. So against blue, you probably side this out. Um, the other thing is they could also hit you with some counterplay cards, because since he's reduced to a 3 cost, if they have a counterplay that hits 3s or less, he can easily get hit. The nice thing is a lot of the answers like that, like in green and black, they need to be at 4 life or less. And we're really not hitting them very often. A lot of times I try to keep them at 5 or 6 unless they have a Self-Awakening leader. And then I'll try to go for that burn. So that way I don't have to worry about those kind of counterplays. Like, it's not as bad hitting these guys. It's more hitting our topos that we'll see in a little bit. If they hit our floodgates when we really need them with those counterplays, it really hurts. So I like to keep them at a high life. The other board wipe is the other card, SSB Kaioken. You have to play him on your turn, but he does have deflect, so he's really, really good against blue. And he also helps as barrier removal. So you could not play him, but you could tap 2 and hit something for minus 25, and it will help with indestructible, help with barrier removal. If you choose to play him, he could be a board wipe and hit everything 20k or less. In that case, it's not a subtraction, so it won't hit indestructible and it won't hit barrier, but it can be a wide board sweep, and then again, you get a blocker out of it. Now, our insurance plan is when they do hit us with a board wipe, I'm thinking like Secret Identity Mass Saiyan, our insurance policy is Bunny Bulma. So when an Earthling card is removed that is not a Bulma, you get to play her, and she already has blocker, but of course she gains blocker as well. And then you get to choose a Earthling only card from your drop area with a cost, I think, of 4 or less, and you get to play it. So this has a lot of good targets. A lot of times they really try to get rid of the Yamchas. They try to get rid of these Yamchas so you could just replay him and get the draw power again. You'll still get the on-play autos. So maybe you want to search for the Unison, maybe play another Goten, or maybe search out a super combo with him. Maybe you just need a barrier blocker, and then you'll draw a card. But the play I almost always go with is if I'm desperate because they swipe my board and I need a lot of blockers, I will play Baba from this, and Baba will then grab the bandages from the drop as well. So after a board swipe, you get 3 blockers that you can now play with. And that is a very, very nice feeling when they think that they got rid of all your blockers, but then you just come back with 3 more. We will be drawing a lot, but sometimes we'll have energy that we don't have anything to do with. And the more floodgates you use, the lower your hand might get. So we are running 2 draw apes. We're never going to play this as a blocker, but you're going to discard it or combo it off, and then you'll have energy to play with, and then you're going to draw more cards. Sometimes you'll even have hand sizes as high as 16, so that's really, really nice. Our Unison sometimes will get swung at a lot, and you're like, how am I going to win? I'm not going to be able to plus it 2 or 3 markers. This Bardock is where it comes in. He has deflect. He's a 20k blocker now. And when he gets played, you get to choose one of our Unisons and add 3 markers onto it. So now they're going to have to swing into your Unison multiple times. And as long as you keep it at 4 or higher, or maybe even 3 or higher if you have another Unison in hand, you're set to do the burn the next turn. There are some neat combos that we could also use with him if we happen to combo him off, or if he happens to die and we need another. And that is this Videl. This Videl is very, very nice. She is an Earthling, but she's not an Earthling only, so we can't play her off Bunny Bulma. But you can search her actually off the top 5 with the Goten, because technically she does gain Saiyan in all areas. Now, when she gets played, you have to bottom deck an Earthling or a Saiyan that is red or yellow, and that's very easy to do. And then you get to choose one of your red or yellow Saiyans with an energy cost of 3 or less in your drop area and put it to your hand. So this will grab you a lot of combo pieces that you might need for the next turn. So we were just talking about Bardock. Maybe he's in the drop area. You need to grab him back to make sure your Unison's tough. We can grab the Gotens. Probably not going to do that very often. I've used these Kaiokens and I needed them back, and I could just grab them again. So if they keep on playing these barriers or these indestructibles, I could just keep recycling this, and this comes in actually clutch pretty often. And I guess you could grab this guy if you really want. Probably not going to. The other guy I really hit a lot is Nappa. So then you get another blocker, another super combo that you could keep on recycling. And I guess you could even re-grab a second if you had one of these Videls and you want to re-grab another one of them so you could keep the combo going. You could keep just recycling one into the other, and use them as many times as you want as long as they don't get warped. Now we got to have a lot of floodgates outside of the blockers. Now, this is not quite a floodgate, but we are running 2 of these Android 17s. And again, we see a lot of cool combos with this. He gets to, when he gets countered, you get to play 1 cost red from your drop area. Again, you could play this and grab super combo or grab something out of it. Grab a Go-10 again if you want to search. Grab a blocker with barrier. So you got a lot of utility, but a lot of times I'm going to play this after he negates. I get a blocker, and then I get a second blocker out of it. Again, for 2 energy, you get to stop 3 attacks out of this. You could play Broly Crown as well, and maybe swipe something out of their hands. So you'll still get those on-play autos, and it's really, really nice. The other benefit of this is this does not have a Saiyan tag or a Earthling tag. So most of the time, you don't want to swing with your guys that are 15K or even 20K or whatever it is, because you want to save them for blockers. But since you know that he cannot be a blocker, this is one of your beater pieces that you could just keep swinging with, take markers off their unison or add pressure onto their leader, and you don't have to worry about it. The only time you don't want to swing with them is really if you just want combo power. And then the floodgate for red is for Topo. You're going to keep up energy often a lot. Sometimes if you know they're going to hit you with a counterplay, you might even keep up 4 energy just so you could use Topo twice. If they trunks the first one, you can always play a second one. Or if you know they're going to hit one of them, you can at least try to get 1 Topo out. Again, I try to keep them at a higher life total, so some of those counterplays will not work on him. Now, he will discard a card from your hand when you use the counterattack. A few rulings that might be very useful in this matchup is if they counter your Topo, like with a cooler, you do not have to discard. So it's only when he gets played that you'll have to discard. So if they hit it with Denial of Hope, you will have to discard and you won't get the floodgate effect. So he does have to get played. One additional ruling that many people do not know or get confused about is that his discard is actually part of the play effect, but it is not a cost. And some people are going to argue with me. I've confirmed this with Eric Thompson multiple times, and the judge community has also agreed on this. This is not a cost to discard. It's part of the effect. So this actually has occurred to me on multiple games where my cards in hand went down, whether I was playing hand control or they were just whittling away my resources and I had no cards left. And then I had 2 energy open and 1 card in hand, and I would play the Topo. And they said, he can't get played or he doesn't get the floodgate effect because you don't have the cost. Well, he was printed after the colons were used for cost. And if he's the only card in your hand, you do not have to discard and he will still get his floodgate effect. So a lot of times I might even just use a violent raise and discard. And if they're still trying to swing and try to kill me or kill my unison, I'll play this when I have 1 card in hand, and then it basically will shut down their whole turn. Speaking of which, the other red floodgate we will be running are 4 violent rays. We're trying to max out on all these floodgates because they will help us survive. A lot of times you'll either discard bandage for this or the draw apes. That way you can get use out of those drop area. Or if you know that you have that Videl that will grab something from your drop, you could discard something and just pick it back up the next turn. So it doesn't even feel like you are discarding cards. And the secret rare we're running is Kai. Some people are wondering, like, why not play Pan? And of course, you could always play Pan because that will help ease some aggression. But you already run enough floodgates. You really want to have board swiping ability. You could run maybe the Dragon Ball one that also swipes the board, but you will also lose your board in that case. So this is a 40k beat stick. Sometimes you just need that one extra energy to, I don't know. I'm sorry, not the extra energy, the extra attack. So that way you could burn them the next turn. So 40k, they're probably going to take it. And then you could burn them. You could board swipe them, get rid of their unisons very easily. And if you use it defensively, you could even stop the leader and unison attack if played well with the sequency. And then finally, we're just going to quickly look at the side deck. I'm still kind of trying to perfect this, but a lot of it is just upping upper ratios. Sometimes playing Yamcha can be clutch. So we have a third Yamcha, SSB Kaioken. This gets sided in a lot if I notice they're going really, really wide. I just need another board wipe, or if I know I'm playing against blue or playing against barrier, he's going to come in clutch. Run another Vegeta, stop those counterplays, or maybe there's some kind of card that's 15k or less and I need some counterplays to stop some kind of combo. I'll put him in. If they're having a lot of board wipes, another Bunny Bulma. Again, just upping up that insurance policy. Now, I'm not siding a third Kaba, but maybe they are playing control and maybe they're hitting your Kabas, so maybe you need some kind of defensive awaken. This could also be after image if you really want, because maybe they're not keeping you at 5, maybe they're keeping you at 6, so maybe after image might be better if you want to test that out instead. But a lot of times they'll keep you at 5 because they want to get you close so they could hit you for a lot in one turn. So defensively, you'll be able to awaken with testing the opposition and then get another blocker. If you want to play more of the control game, you got Kettle over here. Now, Kettle is not a Saiyan or an Earthling, but he naturally has blockers, so he kind of goes with the whole theme. He is basically a Denial of Hope, but with combo power, so it doesn't feel clunky in your hand. He has Bomb 3, and if you have 3 battle cards, which is not hard to do with our blockers, he will become a 2-cost, and he will counterplay anything 20k or less. So this guy actually can hit Topo if you're worried about that. And then when he gets played, you also get to subtract something by 10k. So he has a lot of utility. You're stopping a play, you got a blocker, and then you're possibly even stopping another attack with the -10. Now, I wish I had a second one of these. The one card that really hurts this deck is Koitsukai. You're playing cards so often, or you're playing your floodgates. On the turn that they Koitsukai, you either got to just bite the bullet and just warp the 2, or maybe if you have Violent Rays, you could kind of go those other avenues. But considering even our super combo will be played, or Bunny Bulma is going to play a bunch of cards, it's really, really hurtful. So if you know that they're going to Koitsukai, you can play this. I mean, you could counterplay with it, but that's probably not going to be beneficial because they're probably going to Koitsukai almost immediately. So most of the time, you're going to use her on your own turn and get rid of their Koitsukai from the drop. And that way you don't have to worry about those floodgates as much. Again, if I had a second one, I probably would side it. This is just more hate for blue, especially Soul Striker. It could also work against like Golden Frieza. Basically, this will become a blocker and just be a pain in the butt for those untapping leader decks. It does not work on the Awaken, though. This is a really nice one for those Sensu Bean offensive decks. So every time they untap, they'll have to warp 5. So that will screw up either their Overwhelm game or make it near impossible to untap. Because if they use Sensu Bean to the full effect of untapping 2, they will have to warp 10 cards. So a lot of times people are using Sensu Bean offensively, so that way they plus an energy to use that turn, and they might just find that Sensu Bean like just becomes a neutral 1 cost, or basically a 0 cost if they can only warp 5. And the nice thing is this is for the game, so you could block with him immediately and that game effect is still in play. And then you could keep recycling this guy. He could be really abusive where they might have to warp 15 if you, I don't know, Bunny Bulma him out, or use Android 17 to replay him, or use the Videl and keep on bringing him back to hand. Or maybe, no, you can't bring him back to hand with Videl, but you could bottom deck him and possibly draw him later. So this can be very, very impressive even as a one-of. And of course, we're playing the long game, so we do want to run Jiren just in case that Android 17 comes out. But typically, Android 17 probably won't be too detrimental because we'll probably have at least a few blockers. So unless they have a wide board, we probably won't get crit to death that turn. But we do want to have this just in case. And then the final card is, if they're very aggressive, you need another floodgate, especially if it's a self-mill deck, like I'm thinking about the Universe 7 deck or even Gogeta Zeno, or if it's a deck that even just draws a lot. Typically, I would try to use the topos before I would use this. This also naturally has blocker, and now they have to warp for every, or not. I'm not sure if it's warp or mill, but they will have to take 4 cards from their deck and discard them essentially to swing every single time. And with a field full of blockers, they're probably not going to be able to push through a lot of the time, especially since she has blocker as well. So it could be very, very annoying for them to try to either kill your unison or try to kill you on those turns. I will also show the deck profile if you guys want to just see it at a quick glance, see it all at once, and I'll include the link in the description. If you guys have any questions about it, please let me know. It's a very fun deck to play, and it makes your opponent really, really frustrated. So if you're that kind of player, you'll really enjoy this deck. All right, guys. That's it for today. Have a good one and stay loco.